PG will also mark 100 games for Crows captain Taylor Walker. He says it's an exciting milestone.
Little boy from Broken Hill growing up wanting to play AFL for my whole life, and being able to play 100 games for a footy club I grew up backing for and one that I love. I'm excited and looking forward to it.
And Collingwood players Lachlan Keefe and Josh Thomas have been issued with infraction notices for alleged breaches of the AFL's anti-doping code. It comes after they tested positive to glenbuterol, which is on the World Anti-Doping Authority's banned list. Now the FiveAA forecast, and today a shower or two and 16, partly cloudy and 14 forecast for Friday. Rain at times on the weekend, 14 Saturday, and a cool top of 13 for the Port Adelaide St Kilda game Sunday. Similar conditions next week with temps staying in the mid to low teens. More news as it happens on FiveAA.
It falls in! This Ashes update is brought to you by Blackwoods, keeping Australian workplaces safe and supplied. And Isuzu D-Max, wherever you go, whatever you do, go your own way.
And if you missed it earlier, stumps on day one, not looking good for us at the moment. Australia were all out for 136. England at bat ahead of completion of the day, sitting on 3 for 133 at the moment. Joe Root's on 30. Johnny Bairstow on 1. Bit of rain too that sort of interrupted play a bit there. Maybe that's what the Aussies can do, blame it on the rain.
1395, Adelaide's FiveAA. This is Peter Godfrey.
And temperature 10.5 degrees at the moment. Let's take a look at what's happening across the ditch this morning. Selwyn Manning with us, editor of EveningReport.nz. How's things your side of the ditch, Selwyn?
Yeah, good morning, Peter. Well, it's looking like it's going to firm up to a good day here as far as the weather's concerned. It looks like a high of around 14 degrees. It was an overnight of 6.
Okay.
And nice blue skies and the sun showing. It looks like beautiful. Right across the country, a few signs of spring starting.
It's not,
there you go.
Bit over a month and we'll be there.
We'll
in
be
spring,
there. We'll
yeah.
get there.
Oh, looking forward to it. All right, politics first up. Our Greens party here has cited your Prime Minister John Key in regard to this Trans-Pacific Partnership, where he conceded that we could see costs of medicines and pharmaceuticals increasing, both sides of the dish.
Yeah, that's right. Now the TPP, as it's often referred to, is entering those last stages of negotiations between 12 nations, including the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, nations of the South Pacific, including Japan, but excluding China, of course. And that's the wrap-up of what the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations are all about. The negotiations are taking place in secret, of course. Some of the chapters, however, have been leaked out, which has given information on particularly in the intellectual property kind of areas. And in New Zealand, there's much scepticism relating to the said benefits of the TPP, particularly due to the understanding that the countries will lose, in part, their sovereign right to legislate and regulate in their own interest if it impacts on the rights of those that have signed up to the TPP, particularly in favour of corporations that may wish to place their product or services in a country. Now, also, it's understood that the public health budget, and this is what the Australian Green Party was referring to our Prime Minister about, the public health budget, it's expected will suffer should negotiators, Peter, agree with the pharmaceutical corporations being able to claim intellectual property rights and patent rights for longer. That move will prevent Pharmac. Pharmac is New Zealand's public pharmaceutical procurement entity, kind of purchases all the medicines and treatments and pharmaceuticals on behalf of the public health system here and distributes it out.
Like our PBS, basically, the Pharmaceutical Benefit Scheme, we call it here.
Yeah, similar
just
thing. Different names, same purpose, basically. Now, it's expected that it will make it more difficult for it to purchase affordable generic medicines. Now, remember, generic medicines come about when the patents or intellectual property rights terms expire, meaning the corporates that own those intellectual property rights or the patents, when those expire, the generics are able to come in at a lower cost. And often India and Cuba and countries like that are very much ahead of making generic drugs, and it's saved countries like yourselves and us over here in New Zealand many, many, many hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. Now, all of that is what the Australian Green Party has been referring to late yesterday afternoon, and added, what it said was that it was referring to the New Zealand Prime Minister of having admitted that this was the case. John Key, he was referring exactly to what we were just saying there, and in short, Key was saying that the TPP will result in longer patent length, meaning that medicines will be more expensive for longer. And that's where the Green Party in Australia grabbed onto that, referred to the New Zealand Prime Minister. And the Green Party actually said, and there's a quote here, it shouldn't require a comment from the New Zealand Prime Minister for Australians to learn that the overall cost of taxpayers for medicines is going to rise due to the TPP. End of quote. Now, John Key, he is, let's make it clear here, he's firmly wanting New Zealand, his government, to sign up to the TPP. He says that the benefits to the country will far outweigh the costs, and those costs he was conceding in this area of pharmaceuticals is likely to go up, but the overall benefits were going to make it worthwhile by a long shot in his view. Now, the medical fraternity over here, Peter, it's not so impressed with all of this at all. It's saying, well, the chair of the New Zealand Medical Association, so these are, obviously at the top of the debate here, the man called Dr. Stephen Child. He is saying that he was refused an independent assessment of what the government negotiators are agreeing to in our name. Now, what the medical fraternity was trying to do there is saying, okay, we've had leaked texts that have come through, certain parts of chapters have come through. Looks like it's going to impact on our ability to affordably work within the cost barriers of public health, to be able to deliver public health on a good and meaningful kind of way. We are concerned about this, and we want to feed in and have input into it. After all, the corporations around the globe have been able to do that, so why shouldn't the New Zealand medical fraternity be not able to do that? And that was the argument here, and he said in the quote here, Dr. Childs from the New Zealand Medical Association, we need to have a clear understanding of the possible effects of the TPPA on current and future policy settings and directions before we are committed to such a deal, end of quote. Now, obviously, he was representing a huge body of those in the medical fraternity, but also the group that represents doctors all over the country. So very specifically in those doctors, the hospital doctors, they're very, very open in arguing that this part of the TPP is going to have a negative impact, Peter.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's pretty much the same conversation happening here, really. I mean, with the Greens stepping into it, but, I think our Prime Minister, like yours, seems keen to follow that path. So, yeah.
Yes, and what the debate has shifted around here, coming from those that support the government. There's been concerted effort in the last week or so to try and actually turn public sentiment in favour of the TPP. Now, about 2 weeks ago, just prior to going on a television program, I was talking to a man who represents the United States and United States and New Zealand Business Council, a man called Stephen Jacoby. Now, he was saying to me then that, the problem here is that the governments have not been able to really show the benefits or explain the benefits in detail because the TPP negotiations have been secret negotiations. Governments have been on the back foot as far as being able to really spell out what the real benefits are should they sign up to the TPP. So that was the other side of the view here. But certainly, the public, with what has been leaked out, one would imagine on public interest grounds, and one you can, when you look into it, major concerns there, and obviously for many countries around the world, it's beyond. It seems, when you look at it from a reasonable point of view, beyond just an ideological response of rejection of free flow of trade. Yeah. There's obviously big things there. Even just in closing on that issue, Peter, the United Nations Human Rights Commission, it had also voiced its concern about the possible, what it called chilling effects of investor-state dispute settlements. Now, that's a legal term where it's relating to the regulatory functions of states and their ability to legislate. That's what we were talking about earlier in this bulletin, in their own public interest. And it's saying that there's major concerns there that those risks, that there are risks and evidence that will stop countries from being able to regulate and legislate. What that means very quickly and simply is basically if there was some, the TPP gave rights to, say, one product or corporate is really dumping product there that is having a huge impact on a particular country's own industry, then all players are supposed to be treated equal. Now, there would be resistance and perhaps even legal challenge should your government try to legislate or regulate to stop that dumping from going on to protect your industry. I suppose in some ways, you've seen the impact of that in your car and manufacturing industries.
Haven't we? Yeah, indeed. So I want you to have a quick break and we will come back talk some more in regard to musicians missing out on some of their earning potential. Interesting one. We'll be right back with you, Selwyn. Selwyn Manning, editor of EveningReport.nz.
David Penberthy, Mark Aston and Jane Riley for breakfast.
From 4 o'clock in the morning, they'll ban shooters, they'll ban doubles, they'll ban laybacks. Laybacks, what are they?
I don't know.
That's where you put your head, I think you put your head over the bar, they pour the spirits directly into your mouth.
Okay.
Pretty stupid.
Yeah, well...
It's been years since I've done it.
The FiveAA Breakfast Show. Weekday mornings from 6 on 1395. Adelaide's FiveAA.
Now there's a new arthritis formula called Caruso's Super Curcumin Arthritis Relief. Extracted from turmeric, this formula offers enhanced curcumin absorbability to better fight mild arthritic pain, inflammation and stiffness. Importantly, Caruso's Super Curcumin Arthritis Relief serum curcuminoid levels are 46 times higher than regular curcumin. Plus, Caruso's Super Curcumin Arthritis Relief comes with our amazing money-back guarantee. Caruso's Super Curcumin Arthritis Relief from leading health stores and pharmacies. Always read the label. Use only as directed. If symptoms persist, see your healthcare professional.
Hello, my loyal subjects. There are some pros and cons to becoming a senior. For instance, we've had to sew Velcro strips into Philip's riding pants to keep him upright on the horse. Oh dear. But on the bright side, we can enjoy the seniors menu at the Windsor Hotel. Just $11.50, which includes the Windsor's splendid salad and veg bar. Visit the Windsor Hotel for lunch or dinner every day. North East Road, Windsor Gardens.
Right now, there's an urgent need for foster carers in your community. Life Without Barriers is seeking compassionate, nurturing people to become foster carers. You can be single or living with a partner, with or without your own children. We offer excellent training, 24/7 support, and tax-free financial reimbursement. Welcome a child into your family and your life. Become a foster carer with Life Without Barriers. Call us on 8415 6900 or visit lwb.org.au.
Hi, I'm Damien. I'm an RSP puppy educator. I've trained 3 dogs in a 4-year period. I'm retired and having the dog gets me out, and I walk quite a bit with her, otherwise I'd stay home all the time. It is a great social life, all the puppy educators, we all get to know each other. If I got the attention from the ladies that she gets, I'd be a very happy man.
Find out how you can become a Royal Society for the Blind puppy educator. Call 8417 5656.
Peter Godfrey on 1395. Adelaide's FiveAA.
And we're looking across the ditch as well, looking at what's happening in New Zealand. Selwyn Manning, editor of EveningReport.nz is with us. Now, Selwyn, musicians. I guess every boy's dream of growing up and being a part of a big rock and roll band and making a fortune, but not always the case. New Zealand band She's So Rad, finding that they're in the digital age not really making that much money despite being fairly successful in online streaming.
Yeah, that's true, Peter. Now, the New Zealand Herald put out a report last night that really hit on this, and it raises all of those questions. In this day and age with access to directly to people, through all of these different areas, the digital media obviously is big amongst them, the social media and being able to market, if you were into the band scene and creating great music, etc. There's also the streaming services, and I guess standing back from it, all of us will kind of look at that and think, it must be better for independent musicians in general to be able to basically almost get rid of the middleman in some cases and go straight to the person who likes their music, the consumers, if you want to put it in the jargon terms. It seems like it's not the case. And this band here that you mentioned here in New Zealand, the New Zealand Herald has highlighted, She's So Rad. It had earned, as the Herald says here, multiple 5-star reviews for their album Tango, and have 2 songs on a rotation on Hauraki. Now, that's Radio Hauraki, one of Auckland's biggest, longest commercial radio stations. It's been around for a long time. To get up in that A rotation on Hauraki is a big deal. Now, the Herald is reporting that they've only sold a total of 20 physical CDs. I guess in some ways you can understand that. CDs have moved into the past for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
But only 50 digital albums. But most concerning is it seems that, like from what the Herald has done here, they've had 90,000 song streams on Spotify, which sounds fantastic, doesn't it? 90,000 streams there. You'd expect you'd get a pretty good return from that if you're a musician. They've only got 130 New Zealand dollars out of that, Peter.
For 90,000 songs that were streamed online on Spotify. Wow.
On Spotify, they got $130 back. And this only came to light apparently because one of the band members made mention of it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And apparently it's extremely rare for the musicians to actually really criticise this kind of thing. I guess that they're worried about punitive kind of measures or kickback from having access to their market, albeit with very small returns. And it raises this whole thing about the industry and whether or not there's enough coming back to these artists to be able to sustain or make use of their talents.
Yeah, indeed.
And that's where the Herald has gone with this whole particular thing, and good on it for that, because it's always, like we know, it's always been hard for musicians, irrespective of what country they live in, to make a crust. But if they break through, then the understanding is that, well, they're the lucky ones and they're getting some pretty good rewards for what makes the risk of getting in there worthwhile. Traditionally in New Zealand, bands going right back, like from the one when the pop and rock and roll era really kicked in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we saw bands here in New Zealand, they'd make it big, be on the airplay, get in the A rotation on the radio stations, they'd be doing the pub circuit, and if they were wanting to make a decent living, they would head over to Australia, and that's where you saw like Split Ends and all of those.
Yeah. And we'd then claim them. We'd claim them as our own then.
Yeah, claim them as your own, and rightfully so. There's a big investment, and they're very much knew that they were lucky to have made it in Australia, which got their whole thing making it worthwhile for their music. But if you look at this particular environment for perhaps today's successes, and getting $130 back, really that puts a big emphasis on particularly those streaming services, which is the latest big deal, isn't it?
The amount that they're paying. An interesting story we had here locally, sort of in a similar vein in a way of this. A singer from Adelaide, Sia, she goes, but I don't know if you know much of her over your side of the ditch. Sia Furler, her name is.
Heard a bit, yeah.
She's doing all right. Estimated net worth of some $20 million. But a story in the paper yesterday about her said that I've never made money out of selling records. I've never really made money touring either, or with merchandise, surprisingly. She makes money from writing songs and having other people record them and perform them. So,
that's an interesting twist.
Yeah.
There's a singer-songwriter in Auckland here. He was one of the band members of kind of a punk era, getting into the new age kind of era, back in the 80s. It was called Straight Jacket Fits.
Oh, yeah.
The band. Yep. Now, he and the band didn't make a lot of money back then either, even though they were recognised as being significant. But what he makes his money out of, and still does, is the royalties from doing jingles and writing stuff for other people.
Yeah.
And it's similar to what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, actually, this story went on further. Sia said, I do make money by having my songs in the background of television shows or on commercials or on movie trailers.
As a creator, you'd imagine, you'd be thinking, oh, dear me, my best work is over here, and I get a few dollars for it.
Yeah.
But I make my day. And in some ways, I suppose some writers probably feel the same.
Yeah,
that in this day and age, with access to your work being so, literary writers I'm talking about here, the actual returns are very small. But it's a big issue, I would imagine, maybe not so much. I don't know, Peter, you'd know more about this, I think, than me, but I'm kind of guessing that maybe this streaming thing and then getting such small returns per stream back is is a big deal for countries like Australia and New Zealand, but perhaps not so much for the big consumption population-based countries.
I was thinking that same thing. Yeah, indeed, where they've got the exposure to a bigger market, and that tiny pittance that the streaming services pay maybe adds up because of the vast number of people that are streaming it. I mean, even though 90,000 sounds a lot, maybe others. Although interesting, just on that too, just quickly before we wind up, saw something the other week, Neil Young sort of pulling all of his music off iTunes, at least, I think, and some of the other streaming services. And there's been a few sort of big names like that that have pulled out of those.
And there was a lot of debate, wasn't there, about Taylor Swift? She was going to go on to the Apple one. But then came to a deal where, okay, she would, but only if artists were paid for that 3 months free trial period. When you sign up to the Apple Stream one, you get the 3 months free as a consumer, and the artists wouldn't get paid for the streams during that period, and she brokered a deal where they should, and Apple seemed to turn around on it. But it's an interesting thing. Of course, when there's the mega superstar kind of status that's applied to the artist, like has occurred to Lorde, the New Zealand singing sensation, and she's obviously not short of $1 or $2. But it's almost everybody else that comes down under the next tier of success, if we put it that way.
They're the ones that are struggling.
But it's good on the Herald for raising this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Budding artists, it's a part of our DNA, isn't it?
Indeed. Selwyn, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Have yourself a great week over there. Hope you get plenty more blue sky.
Yeah, let it keep coming. Let that springtime roll.
Exactly. Thanks, Selwyn. Catch you again next week. Thanks, mate. Bye-bye. Selwyn Manning, editor of EveningReport.nz.
Rowie and Bix talk about the thrills and spills of weekend footy. It's the Monday Wash-Up, thanks to Harvey Norman Factory Outlets. Each Monday, it's your chance to win a brand new Harvey Norman washing machine to make your wash-up a